Welcome everyone to BRAP. It's Wednesday, April the 22nd. What's going on, Hero Down Under? What's up, Dark Zone? And yeah, we got a lot to talk about, right? A lot to talk about. And this is going to be more be Xbox related. So, as we all know, Xbox has made some pretty big changes as it relates to the Game Pass Ultimate tier. And so we'll get into that a little bit later. We're going to talk about why did Xbox, why did Microsoft remove Call of Duty from Game Pass and the Game Pass Ultimate tier, and what's next? Like, what does this mean for the future of Game Pass? Because I think that there are people out there who aren't asking that question, right? Like, what precedent does this potentially set for Game Pass? We'll also get into the Circana, I almost said MPD numbers. Those came out today. Matt Piscatella did share those, and we joined here in a bit by the panel. But again, just want to welcome everyone. It's been at least on mine, it's been a very busy week with work and sports, and also when I can, getting some gaming in. Been playing Resident Evil Requiem on the PC. I did actually beat it on the PlayStation 5 Pro, and decided to pick it up again on PC with my 5080 and enabled path tracing, and it looks incredible. Game looks incredible. I really, really, I tell you, I love PC gaming's great. We're eating well here on the PC side of things. I'm telling you, once you go PC, it's hard to go back. Jay Slayer says they raised the price of PC Game Pass. If you want to play COD yearly, they only dropped the yearly price $30. Yeah, like I said, we'll get into some of the Game Pass stuff here in just a little bit, but yes, I've been playing Requiem. Obviously Soros comes out next week, so I'll probably be picking that up as well. Um, there's some other games I think I might want to try. I'm still on the fence with Crimson Desert. I know a few people that are playing it right now, and I just, as I said, I think maybe last week, maybe this game's a time suck. I don't know. I don't know if I want to. Yeah, and that's necessarily a bad thing, right? I mean, I've played games that have really taken up a lot of my time. I just don't know if I want to devote that level of time to one game. So, um, but that being said, I mean, there's some other titles out there that I'm thinking about giving a try. Replaced came out, I think, last week. That looks interesting. Um, I may try that. Um, and if Forza Horizon's coming out, that might be something I try in the future. But I don't know. Just a lot of games right now. My problem right now is I just I just don't have the time to dedicate to playing video games as I'd like to because I'm just so busy running around with sports, and that's really the big issue for me right now. So, life happens, So, um, I forgot Final Fantasy 6 is on Game Pass. No, not 6, Final Fantasy 4. That brings back some memories. And then there's the Final Fantasy 1 through 4 bundle, 1 through 6 bundle. That's actually $80? Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know if I'd wanna play $80 for the pay $80 for the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. I don't know. Not saying it's a bad thing. Somebody will. What's going on, T-Rock? AC Gaming. T-Rock, I've not played the Ghost of Yotei Legends yet. Have you played that? That's actually, that's again, that's something else that's on my radar right now. Just haven't had time to play it. Time sync games are low value to me unless it's FC FIFA. Yeah. No, I hear you here down under. Makes sense. Legends is good, but high level content requires good squad. I played it. T-Rex says I played it once. It's really good, but now I'm so deep in Crimson Desert, nothing else has a chance. So T-Rex, how do you like? What are your thoughts on Crimson Desert? I'm just curious. Let me get Game Logic in here. All right, want to give this gentleman a proper introduction here. Game Logic. Welcome to BRAP, sir.
Thanks, man.
You
I
like
heard you. I heard you pulling T-Rock for his thoughts on Crimson Desert. Before he answers, let me be the first to say nobody cares about the game.
Oh, come on. Somebody cares about it. Someone cares about it. Speaking of games, it's funny because all the talk about the conversation around Game Pass, and I'm going to call it the grand pivot. We'll jump the gun here a little bit, but Circana released the March 2026 numbers, and I somehow missed that. T-Rock says it's the best, worst game I've ever played. Yeah, I don't. It's so good in many ways, but it's bad in others. Yeah, I don't know. That's the part that concerns me. AC Games says I haven't played Legends yet either. I don't have anyone to play that mode with. I got the platinum though. Yeah, I don't know. T-Rock, if you're ever interested in running Legends, let me know. I mean, I remember we spent some time running Legends in Ghost of Tsushima when that came out. That was actually a lot of fun. Josh Ayers says interesting to see Marathon doing so well in the NPD. Let me pull up these numbers real quick, Logic. Actually, before I get these numbers, Logic, what have you been playing recently?
Nothing that anybody's interested in. I've just been playing Call of Duty, NBA, 2K26, and Forza Motorsport.
You said NBA 2K26?
Yeah. Yep.
Is that on sale right now? Because we're like at the tail end of the season now.
I don't know. I don't know about all platforms. I know. So I already had it on PS5, but because I wanted to play it, I wanted to play some in handheld mode. I went to check how much it was on the Nintendo Switch. For me, the Switch 2, on the eShop. It was $8.99 on the eShop. So I was like,
$8.99.
Yeah, I was like, that's a no-brainer. So
yeah, that really is a no-brainer. I mean, that's at $9. It's like, why not? Yeah, I might pick that up. My son's been asking me for. Well, it's funny because MLB The Show just came out. He's been asking for that, but he doesn't know it's out yet. So, hold on a sec, your Hamp. What was I looking up here? I was trying to pull up something. Oh, I'll figure it out later. All right. All right. So this is U.S. hardware sales rose 69% in March 2026. Isn't that crazy? Hardware sales up 69% in March 2026, following strong Switch 2 performance. The Switch. This is the funny thing about the hardware space and console space. It's like, as much as like the doom and gloom that we hear, Logic, about the console market, I see these numbers. I'm like, well, something's happening here, right? People are still spending money on console hardware, and doing that like during what I would argue like, or for some, tighter, it's the word I'm looking for here. I think for some people, it's with inflation, rising cost of energy, gas now, it's for some people, it's a bit of a tougher, economy for them. So, but then you see the Switch, right? The Switch saw a price increase with the launch of the Switch 2, and it is selling very well. So, so this is Game Industry Business just reporting what Matt Piscatella released today. Total U.S. consumer spending on video games jumped 12% to 5.3 billion in March of 2026, while first quarter spending rose by 5% year on year to 14.6 billion. Hardware sales drove these gains, rising 69% to 500 million due to strong Nintendo Switch 2 performance. What do you think? Any thoughts on Nintendo Switch, Logic, and its performance?
I'm trying to catch up to you, BRAP. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm actually on Blue Sky looking at his original post. So
Oh, yeah, I'm on GameIndustry.biz right now.
okay, Nintendo Switch 2 drove the overall gain, while PlayStation 5 spending increased by 3% compared to March 2025. March hardware spending grew 69% when compared to a year ago. Switch 2 drove the overall gain,
Yeah.
while PlayStation 5 spending increased by 3%.
Yes, Switch 2 led both unit and dollar sales for March.
Yeah, well, number one, it's defeating a few narratives. There's a few narratives out there that the Switch 2 is not selling good anywhere outside of Japan. That could not be the case if it were the main driver of the big increase in hardware revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And with the numbers, I guess we're yet to hear their earnings report unless I missed it. So, as I mentioned, a couple weeks ago, they have definitely easily cleared the 19 million or whatever that they were projecting for the year. People made a much ado about them like reducing their production run. So if I cared about people trying to clap back on Nintendo, I'd be going out looking for receipts right now saying, "This you?
This you? Yeah. Is this you?" Well, I've come across that narrative, like Nintendo isn't selling well outside of Japan, but it is. But also, like, look, clearly inflation's an issue. There's been a lot of chatter around the increased cost of gaming. Yes, gaming is an expensive hobby. I've even argued that it's always been relatively expensive hobby. But to me, like, yeah, go ahead.
It's okay. And inflation matters now. So
Yeah, can I use my macroeconomics now? Is that okay? Can I insert inflation into the conversation? Because apparently it's okay now. It's so funny. Things go up in price. It's like, what? I think this. I guess my quick takeaway logic is that I think that there's some resilience here within gaming, and I'm not saying that it doesn't have that gaming doesn't have any of the same challenges or ups and downs or ebb and flows that other consumer products, other industries have. Of course, it does. But even like with some, and I know we talked about it. I mentioned this to you earlier in the week. And by the way, Logic, that was interesting. I read the Wall Street Journal article that you sent me about M&As. That was interesting. But as I mentioned to you, I came off a call this week where, like, part of the call was like, hey, there's less consumer spending, less commercial spending that's impacting our business. That is, causing us to be a bit more cautious, to really monitor spend. There's nagging inflation. There's the increase of gas, the uncertainty, geopolitical climate right now. It's a bit uncertain. But despite all that, right? Like, despite all that logic, I'm looking at these numbers, like, okay, that's still, here's Nintendo with, by the way, again, at $450, which is an increase in price to the previous Nintendo Switch, still outselling the Nintendo Switch and actually performing well. So I think that means something. I
Yeah,
think
and
that yeah,
this is a quarter and especially a month, right? The month of March.
this is well, I was gonna say this is after the holidays too.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. In
Yeah,
the US, people are
yeah,
notoriously tight fisted. You
absolutely.
you know, you really don't kind of lube up and grease up the spending machine until
No,
April when everybody starts getting their tax return checks. Now, not to say people didn't get stuff
but this
early or whatever, but yeah, this is. I don't think this is usual.
you think this is you think this some of this is maybe I would imagine maybe some of this is attributed to tax returns, right? You will have people that file early that get their returns in like, February, March.
I mean, yeah, I mean there'll be a little bit of that. I quite honestly, I attribute a lot of it to panic buying and the war with Iran starting,
Mhm.
and people saying things are going to get worse. let me get, let me like we know that the PlayStation 5 price increases right had that impact. Did we know about those at the tail end of March? I forget. Like, the
We
release
did.
the price increases went into effect like the first week of April. I thought. I could be
Yeah, they
wrong.
did.
Okay.
Yeah. So on the tail end of March, I mean, there was already, I think, was it did we have Forte on? Was Forte on for that show? We talked the
Oh,
price
that's right.
increase, and he
Yeah, yeah,
said
yeah.
like the PlayStations in his store it's sold out
Yeah, so
or was selling away.
that was the last week of March that we had that discussion. So yeah, there's yep.
Yeah. So I mean, so obviously, like PlayStations, the interesting thing with PlayStation is going to be, it's going to be interesting to see what the numbers look like for PlayStation, the for Circana in April, because obviously now April is when the price increases happen. And I would imagine there's probably gonna be, a year-on-year drop in terms of sales for PlayStation 5 because of because of the increased pricing. Um, but for March at least, what Switch 2 led both unit and dollar sales for March, that was followed by PlayStation 5, which saw a 3% year-on-year increase. So I think that that's probably attributed to a lot of that panic buying or, "Oh, shit, like, I better get this thing before the price goes up."
Right, right.
Switch 2 unit sales are 12% higher than the original Switch in the first 10 months. Again, increased price, right? We have an increased price of this. Well, let's say increased price. We have the Switch 2 is more expensive than the Switch, and it's
Yeah, so
selling better.
yeah. And so again, refutement of the doom and gloom headlines from December. This is the worst hardware. See, this is the worst hardware. November was the worst hardware sales since 1995 or whatever the headline was, and then the December headline, Switch 2 sales trail behind original Switch sales in the same, for the same for its first holiday. Totally disregarding and throwing out the holidays are not time aligned, right, based on their launch dates.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the other thing to logic is my point is that I feel like again I understand there's challenges right in gaming, but sometimes I feel like there's a lot of doom and gloom around gaming. Like the sky is falling. Yeah, and to me, again, these numbers don't show me that the sky is falling. Again, we have nagging inflation, we have increased prices, we have gaming become more expensive, and then you have the Nintendo Switch 2, which again is selling at an increased price point compared to the Nintendo Switch, and it's still outselling the original Switch, and it remains, according to Circana, it remains the fastest selling hardware platform in Circana's records since they began in 1995. So while look, I get it. And I'm repeating myself here. Like I certainly understand like there are challenges, but I just don't think the sky is falling logic. I feel like people I don't know, maybe it's because people thrive over the idea of the console market dying. I feel like there's this obsession with that conversation. Oh, consoles are dying. They're selling to the same people.
No, I think. I mean, I think I think I put my thumb on it, and I think it's because first of all, there's been an irrevocable disappearing of the line between journalists, influence, and content creators. So I don't really know what to call them, but like they're all the same. And what I will say is they're just a bunch of cows. Now, why do I call them cows? Because they like to chew the cud, and that's what cows do. Cows are constantly masticating, right? They're just chewing the cud. And my point is that they constantly like to make a do about nothing, right? Because there's just a huge lack of objective news reporting these days. I mean, the only objective news reporting is this right here, is when Matt puts out Circana numbers and when earnings reports comes out. And outside of those two things, there's nothing to do for those people but chew the cud. So we're getting our news from cows.
Oh my goodness, that is funny.
Yeah, I mean that's because we're going to talk about it tonight. Like there's just so much discussion about things that are nothing burgers, rah and pom-pomming over news that's not news, like as if it's good news. Yeah, was Nib supposed to be on tonight?
No, actually, no, I actually did not. I didn't reach out to him. Yeah, like okay. Nib became Nib actually became a news article. I'm like, right. Like Nib having a conversation with Jason Ronald isn't a news article.
Yeah, and I mean this isn't much different than when when Wooly got in an argument with somebody about the planets in Starfield, and that was like a freaking news article. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Prominent podcast citing Colt Eastwood as a news source. What are we doing? Are we in the end times?
Yeah, we might be in the end times. If anyone's ever watched the movie Idiocracy, I've said this on the show before. That's where we're heading. Yeah, we'll all be drinking Brondo in like a decade. Yeah, the thing with Jason Ronald was kind of funny because Nib had commented on, what was it, like something about Helix. There being like third-party Helix devices, and Jason Ronald replied like, "Well, there will be a first-party Helix device." Was that that?
And I'm like, that's and again, a news article about it, which in my opinion, and I read the rumor right in the original posting in the NeoGAF forums or wherever it was, like a certain way, probably different, but maybe I'm going to argue that's because I look at things objectively. So the thing that was posted was that you wouldn't be able to buy these devices directly from retailers, but you would be able to order them. I think they were saying like online, and they were Project Helix devices from the typical laptop vendors, Asus, and I forget what the other one that they mentioned. So Jason Ronald responds, there will be a first party Project Helix device. I'm like, that's not the rumor, and that's not the question. It's obvious that there will be a first party Project Helix device. Literally, you guys just had a huge news conference out at GDC in which you also said nothing for 30 minutes. So no one has any question right now whether or not you're putting out a first party device. Your CEO said that you guys are putting out a first party device. Right? No one questions that. And then if you look at the rumor said you won't be able to buy these devices directly from retailers. I'm pretty sure you will be able to walk into a store and buy a Project Helix device. I don't think Microsoft is only going to sell that through the Microsoft Store as Microsoft Direct. So again, the topic of the conversation in my mind, there's nowhere in the landscape that it was a question about a first-party device. The thing that the rumor is picking up on, it's the thing that we've been talking about for several years, which is that, well, I'll take a little credit as part of my theory, that the Project Helix device will be the baseline device, and that it will probably have something. I'm saying some type of firmware chip, right? Some type of physical piece of hardware on the PCB that is the thing that security locks the box to being able to play the backwards compatible Xbox games. Because lots of licensees would probably have a problem with that being a capability on just any generic PC. But there will be other Project Helix devices that you will be able to buy from the typical laptop vendors that Microsoft works with. So Asus, Alienware, Acer, Samsung, Lenovo, Dell. And yes, I know Dell and Alienware are technically the same company, but they're
I was just about to say,
sold as different vendors.
I hope Alienware comes out with a Project Helix.
Yeah,
because they have really cool designs. Yeah,
I hope that Razer does one. Right? I mean, can you imagine what a Razer Project Helix device would be? It would be super expensive. Right? But my point is that
with some RGBs.
But my point is that I believe that the design will result in devices that are the baseline Project Helix, but then you will get a Project Helix Junior, right? Probably by an Acer, because Acer's shtick is hitting the low end. And quite honestly, I've really historically liked Acer devices. They are typically very inexpensive devices that punch above their belt. And in my opinion, are just as reliable as like a Lenovo or something like that. And then you will be able to get, Project Helix Scorpio, right? Which is an overclocked, beefed up thing that maybe has more storage or has some other bells and whistles options from big vendor. Like you'll probably get an Asus ROG Project Helix, which will probably be a little beefier than the baseline. That is the rumor. So my problem with the rope-a-dope psyop that was attempted is like I'm sorry, Xbox and Jason, like we're like everybody's not stupid. I look at the response that he gave to Nib, and that response does not address the rumor.
No, it doesn't at all. And actually, what he could have done is said, no, there won't be third-party OEM Helix devices. And he didn't do that. He left it open for he left it open to conversation. And this is the frustration I have with Xbox at times on social media. Just be quiet. Why do you have to respond to Nib? Like, no offense to Nib, but who is Nib?
Right. Like, but he did it deliberately because that's what the PR psyop department is orchestrating. It probably wasn't even Jason Ronald. It was probably one of his handlers from the PR department, right? Who has a phone where they're logged into an account that's identified as Jason Ronald, but it's not Jason Ronald. And you're exactly right. That account deliberately sidestepped the question so that they can so that they don't have to reveal anything, but they can assert that they didn't lie. Well, no, you did lie because you obfuscated and chucked a decoy round, chucked a chaff round, right, in the belief that everybody was going to chase after it, and think that you were telling the truth and denying this rumor, but you're not. And so, in fact, what you did was you made a statement to push back on Nib, and so you lathered all the Xbox fans up, thinking that, oh, great, here comes another one of our executives like jumping in front of the bullet, right, and calling BS on this content creator influencer. And I'm like, that's the appearance that he gave, right? It's like old man Wilson in the ghost blanket with the two eye holes, right? When Fred pulls it off of him. Yeah, in the Scooby-Doo episode.
What are the villains always say? Those mangy kids.
Yeah. I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for those meddling kids.
Those meddling kids, yeah.
Yeah, but that's all it was. It's a total distraction round.
Yeah, this is the problem I have with Microsoft Xbox. It's like it's almost like they're so concerned about the chatter on X or social media. They can't like help themselves but to just step in and say something. It's like I didn't think that was I just didn't think it was appropriate for him to come in and say, yeah, we're gonna have a first party Helix device. It's like, well, why are you responding to Nib? This is Nib. Who is, again, no offense to Nib, but who is Nib? Like it's so weird to me that they take the time to respond to people on Twitter. Like I don't understand it. The other two don't do it.
Well, and that's and the point, to go along with the other point that I put out on Twitter this week is I'm like, we're 6 weeks and 5 days from arguably what may be the biggest summer showcase ever in the existence of Xbox. And it seems that the focus of the three executives is to push back on people on social media. Go do interviews at staged interviews at an Xbox podcast, at a
reach
so-called
out to
Xbox podcast.
reach out to Sean Layden.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I don't get it either. Just it doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, guys, just keep your heads down. Tune out the noise. I don't understand. It almost seems obsessive to me that they continue to interact with people on social media. Why? Like I don't think they have a history of that working in their favor.
No, if they did, there would be more people on Xbox.
Yeah,
and they wouldn't be putting COD in the service and then taking COD out of the service,
which we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah,
doing the hokey pokey.
I was gonna say why the bots turn themselves around, but look, video game content spending increased 8% to 4.5 billion. Console content grew 22%, driven by a 40% rise in digital premium downloads. This is why they continue making consoles, people. Right? I always think about, oh, they're selling it to the same people. Yeah, but they're making money. They're making money. Isn't that what this is about at the end of the day, Logic? To make money? Isn't that why companies sell things? To make money? Content grew 22%, driven by a 40% rise in digital premium downloads and new releases such as Crimson Desert, MLB The Show 26, and Pokemon Pokopia. Pokopia led the Nintendo platform. I heard Pokopia, as you like to say, Logic, has done Bonga. Pokopia led the Nintendo platform chart, followed by Pokemon Legends ZA in the second. Pokemon Legends ZA ranked number 18 on Circana's overall top 20. Resident Evil Requiem is now among the top 5 best-selling Resident Evil titles in the U.S. dollar sales after 2 months, following only Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil Village, and the original Resident Evil 4. I may need to go back and play Resident Evil Village. On mobile, Monopoly Go. I feel like Monopoly Go is always like the undisputed king of mobile revenue on Circana, but Go has retained the top spot despite a revenue decline over 10% quarter-over-quarter. And here are the top 20 selling games from the period of March 1st, 2026 to April 4th per Circana. MLB The Show is number 1. Resident Evil Requiem is 2. WWE 2K26 is 3. Not surprised by that, considering that it released, during right before WrestleMania. Marathon,
which was supposedly the worst WrestleMania in a long time. Is that correct?
It's so it's interesting. There are fans out there. There's chatter. There's some chatter amongst content creators. I guess journalists that cover wrestling, fans online that the WWE product is starting to look a bit too corporate. And one of the complaints about WrestleMania was there were a lot of ads, a lot of commercials. And so people are saying, hey, like if I'm like in the US, like if I'm subscribing to I think you have to subscribe to like ESPN Plus or something, ESPN something. You have to get like or you can get it through like the Disney Hulu bundle, an ESPN bundle, but you have to subscribe to get to watch WrestleMania now, or any of the other paid live events. And like they used to, like WWE used to have a streaming app where you pay like your monthly fee, and that's where you could watch if you were a subscriber. Like that was a bonus. You would get all the monthly pay-per-views. And then they went to Peacock, and then if you subscribe to Peacock, you would get all the WWE monthly pay-per-views. What's happened now is that people are complaining that I have to pay on top of having to pay for a subscription via ESPN or Disney, whatever it is. I forget how it works. I also have to sit here and watch ads. And so part of the complaint was like there were a lot of ads during WrestleMania. And they weren't, and people felt like there could have been more matches in place of ads. And there are some people who've been covering the even former professional wrestlers, but there are people who've covered the wrestling industry or professional wrestling for years that are saying like, "Hey, like, it just looks so corporate now. Like, there's literally corporate branding everywhere, right? There's like when they bring out a table, right? When they use a wooden table, there's Slim Jim advertisements on there on the wooden table.
Yeah, man. The Dudley Boys would never.
No, I mean Vince McMahon would never. I mean Vince McMahon was against the idea of putting ads, selling ad space on the ring. He felt like the ring was like sacred, right? Like, no, you're not going to put ads on the ring apron or, on the ring canvas. Like that's just we're not doing that. But that's what they like. That's what they're doing now, and it's like I said, yeah, I get it, right? Like, yeah, sell ads, you make money. I get that. You get corporate sponsors, products, blah blah blah. I get all that stuff. I will say this as a wrestling fan of Logic, when I see Slim Jim stickers on a wooden table that someone's about to get choke slammed through, I think that's a little bit over the top.
Well, the problem, BRAP, is WWE needs to be on every platform.
Well, they're selling.
That's what makes that's what makes the most successful TV shows.
Well, they keep selling to the same people.
Oh yeah,
it's part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, look, the wrestling industry is changing.
And the other complaint too is that the ticket prices for WWE have gone up a lot, and now there's a conversation around affordability that maybe WWE is becoming unaffordable. And that's one of the things that Vince McMahon, when he owned the WWE, was cautious of. Like, hey, I don't want to price out families. But yeah, the industry is shifting. I mean, like when WWE came under TKO, which is the holding company for WWE and UFC. I mean, that really changed the game. That changed everything. Changed the dynamic of WWE. So there were some complaints about that, right? And I don't know if it's the worst WrestleMania. There were complaints about the Cody Rhodes versus CM Punk night one main event. People didn't really not CM Punk. I'm sorry, Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton.
RKO?
Yeah, Randy Orton. Yeah. So people thought that match really wasn't good. It wasn't a good main event match for night one. But night two, people actually praised the CM Punk, Roman Reigns main event. So
I've never liked CM Punk. I think that's the main reason. I've refused to come into the modern era. It seems so much of the narrative, right, of the story is built around CM Punk, and I'm like, I never liked this guy.
Yeah. I think my one complaint with WWE right now is they have so much talent. I think they have too much talent. I think that may be a problem for them in the future. Like there's only so much TV time, right? That the wrestlers have, or that WWE has as well, that they can give to these wrestlers, and they have so much talent between NXT, the two brands, Raw and I almost said Nitro, it's WCW, Raw and SmackDown, and then you have like CM Punk, who's like 46 years old, so he's an older champion. And I'm like, yeah, they have some guys there on the roster that are super talented that are younger. I mean, if you go back to the Attitude Era was defined by a younger group, younger generation of wrestlers. I mean, HBK is a little bit older when DX formed, but I think Hunter Hearst Helmsley was like 26, 27. The Rock was in his late 20s. Steve Austin was a little bit older, in his 30s. But they had a core group of superstars that were younger. And now they have a lot of young talent now, but they're still showcasing a lot of the older talent. And I think part of that, in my opinion, is that again, TKO owns them. They need to put butts in seats, and they're going to go with the name brands, right? The brands that people recognize, like the CM Punks, the Roman Reigns, some of the older guys who are established, and probably like you say about PlayStation, like Sony. What did you say about Sony? Like they will ride an idea until like into the ground.
Yeah.
I almost feel like that's what's happening with some of these WWE superstars, the older ones, like the CM Punks. And
I tell you, I mean, again, this is my perspective from the outside looking in. I feel like what seems to be the more exciting aspect now is the Divas. It seems like the Divas have like one of the best lineups they've had in a long time.
Yeah, the women's division is really solid. And you're right. I mean, but that again, you have like they have so much talent in the women's division, and then they bring back like Paige and they bring back the Bella twins, and then they win. I'm going to spoil this. So just if you if you didn't watch WrestleMania Night 1, I'm going to spoil the Bella twins and the tag team title match here in Night 1, but the Bella twins came out. They're supposed to wrestle for the title belts, the tag team titles, the women's tag team titles. And they bring back Paige. And I'm like, and then they put the belts on Paige and I don't know if it was Brie or one of the Bella twins. I forget which one, excuse me. But I'm like, why? Like they're old. Like Paige actually isn't old. She's like early 30s. But she also came back from a neck injury and I don't think she can wrestle full time. Thank you, RPG said Brie Bella. But then you put the belt on Brie Bella. It's like, why? I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that booking decision. But yeah, you're right, Logic. Like the women's division is solid. There are a lot of like female wrestlers coming out of the women's division that are like super talented. So I mean, then you have like Charlotte Flair, you have Bayley, you have Becky Lynch. They're like the old guard, I guess.
Yeah, and you got Rhea.
I mean, yeah, Rhea Ripley's not as old as as the Bella because the Bella twins are from the from the Divas era. But you're right, like Rhea Ripley's, she's fairly young. Liv Morgan's fairly young. You have La Primera, Stephanie Valkyr, who's young. So they have a stacked division. They definitely have the best women's division in professional wrestling, in my opinion.
Yep. All right, you want to do game sales before you and I get dragged into the battle that will last for all eternity, which is Attitude Era versus Ruthless Aggression. So let's not go there.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Attitude Era, but excuse me. So 4 is Marathon. That came in number 4. So 5 was Pokemon, Pokopia. 6 Call of Duty Black Ops 7. 7 Monster. I can't even talk today. Monster Hunter Stories 3. 8 NBA God, I can't talk. NBA 2K26. 9 Minecraft. 10 EA Sports FC 26. I'm not going to go through the rest here. So that's the top 10 for Circana. And I'm not going to go by the individual platforms where the top selling games were for the individual platforms.
Yeah, nice to see a couple PlayStation exclusives in there. Guess people are starting to finally believe that exclusives matter. Very surprising.
Oh boy, that's.
I heard Marathon. I heard Marathon must be doing horrible because the concurrent numbers aren't good enough. But here it is, 4th. Like I think I'm going to try to bypass the lecture tonight and just say once again, what the internet talks about, what content creators have as narratives. Like it seems like literally every month we come to these Matt Piscatella numbers and they are disproven. So,
well, I mean that was kind of my point early in the conversation. It's like it's always the sky is falling with console gaming, right? And that there needs to be this grand pivot, and it's like okay, but like I'm looking at the numbers and I'm like, the numbers are like, the numbers are sort of like debunking some of these narratives.
And it's like you said, yes, there's headwinds, yes, there's challenges, but
absolutely,
again, we're talking about a $92 billion business, right? And people act like that's a horrible thing.
Well, I mean, that's the crazy part, but that's the thing. It's like, do they think that there's no that the gaming industry or the console business doesn't have any it doesn't face any headwinds? Like there's never ups and downs. I mean, like if you've been gaming as long as us, like there's been ups and downs, but even through those ups and downs, even through, I mean, you talk about inflation in the 80s, right? You talk about the death of the consoles in the early 80s. You talk about, recessions. We had the single largest economic downturn since the Great Depression, right? in the late early like 2008, right? I don't know, like the gaming industry lived through that.
Yeah, and I know you said you didn't want to do the platform numbers, but again, just because it's more debunking, on the top PlayStation games. MLB The Show 26, Sony first party title. Marathon, Sony first party title. Ghost of Yote, Sony first party title. Because we've had lots of people come into the chat over the years and tell us PlayStation can't afford to fund first party games.
And those are all first party games.
Yeah.
Now somebody's going to say, well, Marathon and MLB are on multiple platforms,
Yes, but these are the sales on that platform.
Oh yeah, you did say that.
Yeah, so it did. Yeah, so it did. No. The statement you made that would be the argument somebody would levy is still correct. Right? Amazingly enough, I think in the last week I've seen 2 people trying to comment, have commentary on the gaming industry who like clearly don't understand NPD numbers. Like when Shinobi tweeted out the returns that were being seen for Starfield on PlayStation 5, and they were Circana numbers, and somebody was like, well, Microsoft hasn't reported these numbers, so this news report is false. I'm like,
oh my god,
you do understand Microsoft has a trade agreement, like has an agreement for data exchange with Circana, and they provide Circana is reporting the data that Microsoft reported to them. Like, do you not understand that?
No, they don't. They think Circana's like Ampere analyst.
Or Alania.
Or Alania, not Ampere. I'm not going to insult Piers Rolling and whatever his name is, Harding Rolling, whatever his name is. Yeah. Which someone Alania blocked someone for.
Oh, that was Gaming Ledger. Because he asked them,
Gaming Ledger.
What's your methodology? Like, what's what's behind the numbers? Yeah. One of my favorite pastimes now is I go to Alania's profile page, and I just scroll down and see who has who's quoting them as a reliable source and just blocking them. I have no interaction with them, but the fact that you're quoting Alania Analytics as a reliable source tells me you're an idiot, and I just need to block you so you never come across my timeline.
Hold on here, sec logic. All right, sorry about that.
Oh, sorry. I did again. I know you said you didn't want to go into the but March 2026 top 10 best-selling premium games across aggregated PC storefronts. Marathon comes in at number 1.
Oh yeah, see that right here. Marathon's number 1. Resident Evil Requiem is number 2. Monster Hunter Stories 3. See, Death Stranding's number 4. Wow.
Yeah. I'm actually really impressed to see Call of Duty Modern Warfare is selling in at number 9, while Black Ops 7 is selling in at number 6.
Yeah, Modern Warfare.
That's a 2019 version.
Yeah. It must be on sale?
I don't know. Well, this is by revenue, right? So even if it's on sale, it's doing volume. That's crazy that last month it was 111.
Yeah, let me.
Well,
what's Call of Duty? What's Call of Duty on Steam right now? Let me look at this real quick. Pull up my Steam store here. What is it? Call of Duty
Modern Warfare 2019.
$2019?
Yeah, the reboot. I don't know. I don't think that one's for sale on Steam. Right, because they brought when they brought Call of Duty back to Steam, it was just for like that version forward, right? So I don't think Modern Warfare 2019 is for sale on Steam.
Yeah, I think you're right. Is it on the Xbox storefront? Where?
It'd be on BattleNet.
Maybe it is on BattleNet. Because the Call of Duty Modern Warfare that's on Steam is the one that released in 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the 2019. This is the 2019 version, right?
Right.
Yeah, now I want to find this game. Modern Warfare. No, I think that is on Steam.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah, and holy shit! Hold on here.
That's still selling for full price. It's still $59.99.
What the hell?
I have no idea.
What is driving that? Like to go from 111 to what? What did you say? 80 or not 80? 8?
8th, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's selling full retail. It's $60.
And Spud says it was $6 during the Steam spring sale. So I mean,
$6?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I kind of poo-pooed on the sale price. Saying that the charts by revenue. I guess still that may have just turned it into the game that literally everyone bought, right? On who came to shop. There, so many people came by and just said, "Well, fuck it. Why would I not buy it just to put it in my collection?"
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
so
$6. $6 for this game is, especially if you're looking for if you got like a 5080 like I do. The game has full ray tracing.
And what is super surprising too, especially on Steam, is a lot of those old versions of Call of Duty will still have a thriving multiplayer community.
Mm-hmm.
Like they won't have the concurrence that obviously the new game does, but there will be enough people playing it that you're going to find like a a consistent matchmaking without a ton of wait time. So I've gone back and played like some older versions, and I'm like, wait, people are still playing this game. Yeah. So yeah, I guess maybe that's what did it.
Damn, I wish I would have known that was on sale. I don't know. I try not to pay attention to the Steam sale sometimes because I end up buying stuff that I never play. Just because it's cheap.
Yeah. Yep.
What else here in PlayStation? So did I miss PlayStation? Where's PlayStation? Oh, here we go. PlayStation. Yeah. So MLB, WWE, Resident Evil, Call of Duty Black Ops 7, NBA, Marathon, EA Sports. Ghost of Yotei still up there. I was told that game didn't sell well.
Yeah, I was heard the attach rates aren't good enough. That when you only sell to 5% of the player base, that doesn't make sense for you to put that money into it. I also heard all AAA games are $300 million budgets. So because
where did that come
Jason
from?
Schreier, Jason Schreier. No, that's not what Jason Schreier said.
No, he didn't say that.
He said he made a very high level, very generic kind of hand wavy statement, and what people ran with was, "Oh, that's every AAA game." And I'm like, no. What are you saying? There is basically there are some AAA games that have like ridiculously bonga budgets, and where if you're not a Spider-Man 2, then then it does maybe then that's probably if you're not a Spider-Man 2 or if you're not an Insomniac game or a Naughty Dog game, where you're definitely going to see profitable returns with that kind of budget, then it's a risky premise that everybody else is taking to try and keep up. But people ran with, a AAA game budgets are $300 million. It's out of control. I'm like, no, Ghost of Yotei's budget was $70 million. And it's literally been charting since it came out. And we're almost halfway through the year following its release. And that game is not on PC.
Nope. I mean, look, it outsold Crimson Desert on PlayStation.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And Monster Hunter Stories 3. It's funny because I mean, we talk about the impact of exclusives. This is it. This is what keeps people engaged in that ecosystem. Creates that brand identity. And so if you have these great exclusives you can't get anywhere else, and then you get this great third-party support, it sort of becomes like the place to play. I just don't know. It's funny, like now the conversation's turned to, well, maybe Xbox should bring exclusives back. What? Like, why did that conversation change all of a sudden? I don't know. It's funny. It's funny. I laugh at it now. But to your point, like Logic, like every time we see these Circana numbers, it's like it debunks narratives that we see on social media and some of the talking points you hear in certain podcasts or from certain influencers.
It kind of makes me curious why we have to go over it every month. Not us going over the Circana charts, but kind of like it's been months and months and months and 4 years right of this. This isn't new. It's like it debunks it like every month. I don't get it.
All right, let's move on from Circana here. Where's the page I'm looking for? Damn, really mad I missed out on that sale. Somebody said it was $6.
Yeah. Spudmaster P.
That's a steal. All right, Logic. Microsoft cuts Game Pass subscription prices after new Xbox CEO promises to recommit to gamers. Microsoft has reduced the price of the top tier Game Pass Ultimate service by 23% to $23 a month. The more limited PC Game Pass subscription now goes for $14 a month. But the subscriptions won't have the new Call of Duty games at launch time. So those games are not launching day and date. And Asha Sharma had really said Game Pass become too expensive. And she's like, this is why we made this price decrease happen. In their blog, our players cover a wide breadth of geographies, preferences, and tastes. So while there isn't a single model that's best for everyone, this change responds to a lot of feedback we've gotten so far. All right, Logic. What are your thoughts on the price decrease here? Is this a good thing for consumers? Does this create more questions, or does this create more questions for the future of Game Pass and what Game Pass might look like?
I mean, I think for consumers, it speaks to one of the arguments that I was in this afternoon, which is that your mileage may vary. Values in the eye of the beholder, as Mooch likes to say all the time. So it's going to depend. For the diehard faithful who have been in on Game Pass, forever, and are unwavering and never change their mind, about what the value of Game Pass is, regardless of the price changes and the content changes, they're okay with it, right? They were in for a penny, in for a pound. they were gonna. I mean, they stuck through the $30 increase, so obviously that wasn't going to shake them. So reducing the price by $23 to for somebody who's an indiscriminate customer, that's obviously going to look like upside for them. The way they will articulate it is that, well, it's less than I was paying, so I'm not going to complain about a price decrease. But the way I would say you would really articulate it from a market assessment perspective is that consumer was going to buy it anyway, regardless of the cost. So, of course, lowering the cost to them is going to seem good. My problem with them is then their effort to then influence everyone that everybody else should feel that way, and that feeling any way differently is somehow wrong. I think the next two categories of people are people who came into the service because adding Call of Duty was the tip over point. So for me, right? So there's a few different consumers in Game Pass. There are the consumers who bought in from the beginning because they're Xbox and because it's a good deal, whatever, right? So those people jumped in immediately. For me, the tip over point was 2019, I think, which was Day and Date. I think Day and Date had actually been announced maybe months before or a year before, but PC Game Pass, because I'm a PC main. And so at that point I was like, okay, well, yeah, that makes total sense that like I would get access to those games on console and PC. So if you do something to disrupt the things that are people's tip over point, that's when they start reevaluating the value prop. So if the person came into the service for Call of Duty, if their tip over point was 2024, and now you've pulled it out of the service, those people are going to be bothered. And I think a couple other smaller subgroups of those are people who only came into the service, for Call of Duty, not only for Call of Duty, but basically there's a bunch of stuff in Game Pass. They didn't give a crap about any of that stuff in Game Pass until the moment you put Call of Duty in. Then, everybody, even people who are Call of Duty mains, need like a night off. So there was content for them to play. So this is the person who was only buying maybe one video game a year, or two. And so they now have access to a ton of stuff to spend their Call of Duty downtime in. But now, by pulling it out of the service, you've disrupted that, and you're going to probably send that person back to just only buying Call of Duty per year. And then you have the people who left the service, who said $30 is too much. I don't care about Call of Duty. So the question is going to be, do you bring those people back? But part of the thing that those people will have to consider is, I don't care about Call of Duty, but the price is still $23. And notionally, that $3 upcharge is for a few things. It's for the Fortnite monthly subscription, which maybe I don't care about because I don't play Fortnite. And I certainly don't play Fortnite enough to warrant a subscription. Oh, by the way, that subscription was recently devalued because Epic has monkeyed with the formula of what the exchange rate is for V-Bucks, as well as how many V-Bucks or whatever points you earn in executing the Battle Pass. So they've upset that economy. So actually, that as a value add is actually worth less than it was a year ago when they put it in. They've also put in Ubisoft Plus Classics, not Ubisoft. People keep running around saying, oh, they added Ubisoft. No, they didn't add Ubisoft. They added Ubisoft Classics, which is a subset of their catalog. And those games that are in there are typically on sale for $2.99. So me personally, I already literally own every single past Ubisoft game that I could ever want to possibly own. My own fiscal irresponsibility, I own 2 or 3 copies of them. So those things, there's a set of consumers that those things aren't value adds for. And then the final thing is you then paywalled Day and Date, I guess what now I would call the 99% Day and Date solution. You paywall that to the ultimate tier. So, one person I was arguing with today said, "Well, you can just down tier." I'm like, "No, you can't down tier. Not if you were brought in on the promise of Day and Date, because that promise, which used to be for everyone, is now only for ultimate citizens." So, I mean, everybody's going to have like different calculus on, whether or not the thing is value priced for them.
Get this super chat here. Stanley Buffington with the $5 super chat says, imagine if HBO took out the season of Game of Thrones from HBO Max and lowered the price. There would be outrage. This move won't grow the service. Thank you for that super chat, Stanley. Yeah, I think the jury's out on whether or not this move will grow the service. I think some people will probably come back. But I also think that part of this move too, Logic, is I think this screams. Well, let's say scream. I think this shows that, like, if it doesn't make economic sense for Microsoft to put a game day and date, a first party game day and date in Game Pass, nothing's off the table. I look at this as the promise that they made years ago, right? And the fact that Phil and Xbox leadership trained everyone to think all our first party games will come into Game Pass day and date. I think that is off the table now. And I think that it raises questions about where Game Pass is going. It's funny, there is a Xbox podcaster who I won't mention his name, but I have never agreed with this individual ever. And they raised this, yeah.
Literally the first credible thing that individual has ever said on a podcast.
I was shocked. Literally shocked. Because you're right, it was. And I agreed with him. And not enough people are talking about this. People are focused on the numerical value of $29 versus $23. I'm saving $7. It's a win. Well, is it? Because I said this on Twitter. Like, it begs the question that if the numbers don't make sense, if the economics don't make sense for Xbox now to put a game day and date into Game Pass, and I'm specifically I say a game, I mean a first-party AAA game that has a rather large budget. You know, the Jason Schreier $300 million budget. You know, maybe over $100 million, who knows? But at some point they may say, you know what? Like, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, Logic. We're not going to put this game day and date. So I think nothing's off the table now. I think this sets a precedent of, hey, if the math ain't mathin', we're not going to give this thing away for quote unquote free because we're losing money. The other thing I disagree with that I had a disagreement about, and that I brought up with this price decrease is that I don't look at this logic. Like, I get it. Like, people look at like $23, $23.99 is less than $29.99. There's a but, though. The but for me is that the baseline from which this price increase originally happened or took place was $20. And that included Call of Duty. So now they've removed Call of Duty, which I've argued, Logic, is a big, I think we talked about this off air. My argument is like Call of Duty is a big anchor to Game Pass, right? A huge AAA release, annual release that drops in that service. Like, to me, that's like a major anchor of Game Pass. We have Call of Duty, arguably one of the most popular, biggest annual releases in the gaming industry, and it's free in Game Pass. To me, that's a tremendous value proposition.
Well, it is, but it's also been an ineffective one.
Well, I don't disagree. I think that's another reason why they pulled it. But I'll get to that point in just a sec. But my point is, like, to people like on Twitter the last 2 days was like, yeah, I get it. Like, sure, like, is it good for consumers that, you know, we're like, yeah, this is too much, and I don't value COD? Yeah, absolutely. But I think that, but I'm also not going to pat Microsoft on the back and say, hey, you guys this is a very super pro consumer move when they've removed COD, right? And I've said the baseline for this is 2024, where when Game Pass Ultimate Tier was $20, They've removed COD, and you're still paying more than you were in 2024. And in 2024, you had COD day and date. That's gone now. And like you said, last year, they still managed to pocket $3.
Yeah, for content that a lot of people are not going to see any value in.
Well, that's the other thing. People are like, well, they put in, Ubisoft Classics and Fortnite. What's the Fortnite thing they put in there? I forget.
Fortnite Club.
Fortnite, yeah. And it's like, are we really? Are we putting like Fortnite and
Or Fortnite Crew, I think.
Are we putting Fortnite Crew and Ubisoft Classics? Are we putting them on equal footing to COD? Like, no. I think go back to your point logic about. I think you said like maybe COD didn't really move the needle for Game Pass
Right.
Pass subscriptions. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's I think this exposes what some of us have been talking about. Strauss Zelnick has been talking about, and Sean Layden. I think this exposes a sustainability problem with Game Pass and big AAA releases. Your favorite executive Strauss has talked about this. Doesn't make sense to release AAA games day and date in a subscription service.
Yeah. The problem with the formula was, as I said at the time, right? Like or 6 months later, when we knew, yes, there was there's a seasonal uptick in subscriptions, due to Call of Duty, but then it tapers off. And you and I talked earlier today. I was like, Xbox really now has two problems that they've gained through their acquisition that they fought so hard for, and that their some of their sycophantic fan base rallied for, which is they have created both a Game Pass problem and a Call of Duty problem since taking ownership of the franchise. The Game Pass problem is you literally played the biggest poker chip you had. Not just the biggest poker chip that you had, but the biggest poker chip in the industry. You had the industry equivalent of the ICBM nuclear Minuteman II missile, right? And you launched that mofo, and it did not do what you wanted it to do, what you needed it to do. And on top of that, then it started impacting P&L, apparently. Really three problems. But the third problem that you have is a lot of people are talking about, well, there was a money problem with, it's not just a money problem. The numbers have been dropping. This year's Call of Duty is not considered, right, is not drawing the crowd that it used to. Now, some of that has been because of competition, because I think, this year what we saw was a chink in the armor, right? And so Battlefield 6 and Arc Raiders were able to put Call of Duty in the figure 4. And at least for a few months, like, go for the tap out. So, and I don't think that's over. It's actually going to be super interesting because, me as an SBMM player, I think that the numbers drop off has something to do with them pulling SBMM. As much as people complain about it, because again, I go back to, it's kind of funny how the internet complains about something and says something is the problem, such as charging $40 for a multiplayer game, while Marathon says hold my beer. So I wonder if I'm very curious to see if they will put SBMM back in as the main thing in the future Call of Duties. But they have a problem where Call of Duty's not drawing the player numbers that it used to, and they've disrupted the economy by putting it in the Game Pass. And I don't know that this price reduction addresses the Game Pass problem. Maybe it doesn't address the number of players problem, and I don't know how this move makes the number of players problem that Call of Duty has better.
Yeah, that's a great point, Logic. I guess the other thing I'm going to add to is that one of the arguments I heard is if you only play COD, just buy it, right? And okay, that's fine. Like that's fine if like, I get that, but does that kind of just undermine the? Does that undermine what it undermines what Game Pass is, right?
Well,
Like Game Pass is supposed to be the place where you didn't need to buy an Xbox first party game separately.
certainly you didn't hear that from somebody who asserts that Xbox players buy games, did you?
But this is what I've been told. I mean, it's just I'm just like, guys, like what are we doing here? Like it just doesn't make sense to me. They made like this is what we've all known game. This is what we've come accustomed to Game Pass being. And yeah, I get it. Like there are people who don't care about COD who could care less. I get that. But there are people that subscribe to Game Pass for COD. And now on top of that, they have to pay if they've already, paid the subscription for the year, whatever, or have it for the next whatever months and they've paid for that, you know. Or I'm saying, like, let's say they've already paid for a year. They've subscribed to Game Pass or locked in, and then they have to pay $70 now in addition to that.
I mean, my other thing is because I always remind people that they forget about, they don't talk about, and we blow by the notion of new customers to new consumers coming into the space. So you have people, probably not huge numbers. However, you have some people who will have literally made the choice for Xbox based on Game Pass and Call of Duty being in Game Pass. And so you have to think about, well, what are those people going to do right next generation? What choice are they going to make? But I don't. But if there's literally, I mean, it's a nonsensical statement to me because I don't think that a person who only buys Call of Duty, right, subscribe to Game Pass just to play Call of Duty. I think that there are some people who primarily play Call of Duty who said, every once in a while I like to play something else, right? I like to pick at something else. I like to take a weekend, right, and play something else. And they're like, well, rather than me buy Call of Duty and like one or two additional $70 games per year, I'll just go ahead and subscribe to Game Pass. And so those are the types of people, right? That's the customer demographic that you're going to alienate. But the whole argument is just, somebody said here that I can't believe people are calling this a win. And like, it's just, it's what I wrote earlier today on Twitter. It's just like there are some people who will always make an excuse. It's like they didn't complain when the price was raised and no additional content was added, right? So there were points where the price went up and nothing was added. There was no addition to the value prop, just the price went up. And they accepted that, right? They still said, this is still a good deal. It's still a good value to me. Then the price was increased and a bunch of useless content was added. Again, Fortnite, Ubisoft Plus Classics, paywalling day and date. They didn't complain about that. They said it's still a good value to me. Now, premier content, Call of Duty, is being taken out, while this other useless content still remains, and they're still charging you more than they did 2 years ago. And those people are saying, oh, this is still fine to me. It's still a good value prop. Like, so what you just need to realize if you're listening to those people, and I'm not saying that there's anything, I'm not saying that those people are lying. I'm not saying that, like, I can't see how anybody would make that evaluation. I'm sure there's some part of the demographic that will see things that way. But you need to understand that those people are locked in on Game Pass. They're unwavering. Yes, what I wrote today is they could have dropped the price by $3 and pulled Call of Duty, and those people still would have said, "Well, I'm not going to complain because I'm paying $27 instead of $30." But those people are making a non-granular, non-nuanced perspective and voicing it, and saying that nobody else should be complaining. In some cases, and that's where there's bias and a lot, and disingenuousness, right, in their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Just like me. Look, as a car buyer, I'm probably at a point now where I'm only going to ever buy Subaru, Volvo, or Honda.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I would never, I would never make a thing of myself on the internet and shit talk Ford and Chevy, because I'm not making a objective evaluation of the market, because I'm locked in on the brand that I'm going to stick with. And that's just what you need to understand when you're listening to those people.
Yeah, that's a great point, Logic. I mean, I think what people were struggling to understand with some of my posts, yesterday, today, was that, and I said this earlier in the show, like 2024 again is the baseline. Like that was $20. So to me, the real comparison isn't like, yeah, they dropped the price to $23 and remove COD. No, it's in 2024, Game Pass Ultimate was $20. They included COD. Yeah, now it's cheaper, but COD's gone. Right? So Xbox raised prices previously from $20 with COD, as I think that's what the justification, right? For the initial price increase. So now they remove COD. But they've kept, like I said earlier, they've kept the pricing above the older baseline that included COD. So, like you said, they're pocketing at $3. So yeah, I don't see that as a. I'm not going to pat them on the back for that. So yeah, Microsoft's doing something super pro consumer here.
And that's the nuance, right? Like what I'm saying, what we both been saying is, look, I can understand the math by which somebody goes,
yeah,
this is an upside for me, right? My problem is twofold. My problem is with internet citizens, influencers, content creators asserting that because I see it as upside, you should see it as upside too, and you have no right to complain. And your complaining, you're right, is coming from a disingenuous place. I'm like, no, the guy I was talking to today is like, I guess he's part of the Xbox community. I'm like, instead of using your powers for evil, you could use your powers for good. You could say, hey, I still see this as upside. Here's the pros and here are the cons.
Uh-huh.
And I'm looking at both and I'm saying it's still a pro for me. But instead, what you guys do is you marginalize and you're dismissive of anyone who complains. But like, here are the reasons why you're going to have some people complaining, because they don't see the value in it, because they see stuff being added that they don't have any value to.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I don't want to pay $23 for that. So that's the problem I have. But the other big problem I have is with Xbox trying to walk into the room, right, and sell this as a good idea, or sell this as a win. Sell this as Asha Sharma is selling this as if she's being benevolent, right? And again, this is part of my problem of what the playbook has been since 2020, which is to talk to people like they're stupid. Like, literally, this is the same playbook, right? This is the same playbook that I constantly shout about the 12-month plan of 2022, and then rolling into the developer direct in 2023 and talking as if like people have forgotten what you said on the stage in 2022. People who are looking for dates on games, and you're not putting them on the trailer, or you're putting the date on the trailer, the date, after saying you're going to be playing all these games in 12 months, then putting on the Forza 5 Horizon trailer 2023 with no date, as if people are dumb. I'm like, So you do this big PR spin story, right? Of Game Pass has become too expensive. Oh, by the way, with a controlled leak that you deliberately put out, right, to get people right to grease the skids and lube people up before the official news came out. And now I'm hearing that some content creators even then got like a 1, 2, or 3 hour heads up before the news actually came out. On top of that, you put this word out that Game Pass has gotten too expensive for consumers, so I'm going to drop the price to $23, as if people have forgotten that you raised the price from 20, as you said,
with Call of Duty included.
right? So you're just assuming that people are going to be dumb. Like, I mean, I hate to say it, but kind of like they're doing. So I guess your case is being proven, right? That because you've dropped it to $23, people completely forgot that the actual price increase was from 20 to 30, and that there's stuff in there that nobody wants that you've left in and that you're using to justify the price. Also, by the way, not speaking to the fact that you paywall day and date at the ultimate tier. So again, this is not a pro consumer move. This is my big problem. This was not done for you. This was not done because Game Pass has become too expensive. Game Pass hadn't become too expensive for consumers as the primary. Yes, maybe it did also, but that was an also. Game Pass became too expensive for Microsoft, and that's why the price was reduced with Call of Duty being pulled out. So if you're falling for we did this for your benefit, you're just falling for a mountain of bullshit. And this is my problem with what the playbook has been since 2020. It's been, let's talk to people like they're stupid. And that's just disrespectful. It's discourteous. It is not, it's, jeez.
I mean, and I agree with you, Logic. That was kind of my point about bringing up the baseline 2024 price of $20, right? And that increase, like that's what I said. Like I'm not like, and I agree with you. Like I'm not going to give them a pat on the back. This is a pro Microsoft move, because I think this is, it's just the economics didn't make sense for them anymore. And again, it begs the question. Like I think this thing. I think this thing. I think we look back at this and well, not look back, but I think that. I think this opens a lot of questions now. Like what happens, because now they've removed their biggest franchise. And and to your point, Logic, because it wasn't sustainable, right? The numbers didn't add up. This is a pro Microsoft move. So what happens now? Like, do you think that they start looking at other games now and saying, "Well, wait a minute, like, yeah, maybe we can't release this game with Game Pass now because the numbers don't work out." Like, do you think that that's what this is? Do you think that what this could potentially lead to for day and date releases in Game Pass?
Yeah, I mean, I won't say it's pointedly about first party or day and date. The article that I wrote earlier this week was about how I won't get into a ton of the details on air, but there was a lot of experimental pricing at Instacart that culminated out of capabilities that were built during Asha Sharma's regime there as COO, when that was her underneath her purview. That was her bailiwick. That was like a core part of the business that she was running. And so I think that this resulted from, and what will be coming later is a very strong analytical evaluation looking at player time, what people actually play, because that defines why people subscribe to Game Pass. Like why you subscribe to Game Pass is quantifiably defined by what you play. And I think what they will be looking at is they will be looking at the stuff that people play the least amount of time. And I think they will be comparing that to how much that content costs. And the content that costs a lot that people don't play enough of will be on the chopping block for being removed from Game Pass, because what the analytics will show is that that's the stuff people aren't going to care about if it gets pulled out of the service.
Logic, that sounds like a lot of Microsoft's first party games.
It could be. I will, I won't necessarily say that that's definitely how the math is going to come out, but
I mean, outside of Forza and Call of Duty, and even with Call of Duty, Call of Duty is going to drive engagement numbers that most first party games won't have from Microsoft. I mean, maybe outside of, I don't know what the engagement numbers are for Minecraft, but or who knows? I mean, I just think that this raises questions, is my point. But I'm sorry, go ahead, Logic.
No, I mean, I think you're definitely right. I hate to, make your statements concurrent with the Xbox content creator you mentioned, but I hate to say it. He put it a good way. He said everything's. I won't give him credit. I'll actually make the point that I actually was going to make earlier. What people aren't drawing or connecting the dots on is they're not as we knew was going to happen. When she said everything is on the table, right, or nothing is off the table, whichever the two variations he said, all of the Xbox faithful assumed that was a positive, right? This goes back to the acquisition, right? In this belief that because Activision owned a bunch of latent dormant IPs that they weren't using, that this was going to result in us getting Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, right? Which was the furthest thing from Microsoft's mind, from Xbox's mind. And so everybody's reading those tea leaves as a positive when she said, nothing's off the table. Well, what she meant was that what's not off the table is me considering taking content out of the service that is too expensive. That's upsetting the P&L marker that Amy Hood is asking for. And so, the comment you're making and the comment the other person making is like, yeah, like nothing's a guarantee right now. And I don't just connect that to what's going on now, but I connect it to what's been going on, right? That these content changes, that the deal constantly gets altered, content and price. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, this kind of reminds me of it's just 4 games. And then everyone's saying, well, it's just 4 games, guys. Like, don't worry about it. It's like, let's look at the bigger picture here. And you bring up Amy the Hood. You bring up that, you talk about Amy the Hood. We talk about the acquisition, right? The impact the acquisition had. Remember, and it's so funny. Like, you're right. Like, a lot of people were like, oh, this is going to be great for the Xbox business, right? But I think this changed the calculus for Microsoft and how they view Xbox. And so now here we are with COD being removed. Sorry, Logic, hold on a sec here. This is now the acquisitions could really change the calculus of I think the Xbox business, and it's put a lot of I know we talked about this a lot on the show, a lot of downstream impact to to their bottom line, and having to recoup the what is it, $100 billion or so, Logic, you said they've spent on acquisitions. I mean, like, Amy Hood wants her money back. And I think people put a lot of, well, Asha's going to make Xbox great again, right? And I think this is where the conversation around exclusives is coming from, and they kind of have put her on this pedestal of she hears us, she's gonna, and it's like, guys, like, she's not. Her job is to make the Xbox business profitable, to work. And clearly there's challenges with Game Pass. I think like removing Call of Duty is like the big is like, if you didn't realize it now, you may never realize it ever. Right? With the removal of Game Pass, that Game Pass and having these big AAA games day and date may not make sense. So to your point, Logic, like, she's like, look, nothing's off the table. And everyone's like, oh, this is great. Maybe not. Maybe this means that, hey, I need to do what I was hired to do to turn around this business to make it profitable. Because we've invested $100 billion in a business that accounts for what does the gaming business account for? 8% of Microsoft revenue? Or am I being generous, Logic?
No, I mean I think that's right. I mean it grew at some point,
Yeah.
but yeah. But it's well, we can definitely say it's small beans in comparison to Azure and what they're hoping AI will become.
Mhm. My point is, like, the rule of day and date is no longer absolute. That is gone. I really believe that, Logic. I think that's gone. I think it's like, yeah, day and date unless it doesn't make financial sense. And if it doesn't, it's not day and date. And I'm starting to think about, like, some of these other releases, these future releases like Elder Scrolls 6, Fable. Are those games gonna make it to Game Pass day and date? Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean where I definitely agree with you is like and this is, what I point out a lot of times, like the voice track is crisscrossed, right?
Uh-huh.
It was first it was, hey, all first party games are going to be in Game Pass. And then after the acquisition, it was, well, we're weighing and considering, what of the new stuff that we're bringing over from Activision is going in Game Pass. Then it was, okay, all the Blizzard stuff is going in Game Pass to deliver on the promise of day and date. Then for a year it was okay, but not Call of Duty. Right? Then it was, hey, we've made the decision that, we have 100 million people playing, Call of Duty, and the right thing to do is to put it in Game Pass. Now it's, oh, we overshot, and and we charge people a lot of money for putting stuff in Game Pass. But the rope-a-dope, like I said, I go back to. So now the assertion is that we charged you an extra $10 for Call of Duty. So here, have 7 of those dollars back and feel good about it. Because what we're not going to talk to is that, no, we charged you $7 for Call of Duty. We charged you $3 for all this other stuff that we're leaving in the service that nobody asked for.
Yeah, I'd rather them remove the stuff that costs $3 and keep Call of Duty.
Well, again, that's an indicator of a demographic, right? Like, again, somebody who joined the service to play Call of Duty, lots of them won't have time to play Fortnite. And maybe they've already played those Ubisoft Classic games. I think one big thing that I want to talk about too that no one is talking about. So when you play Call of Duty, Warzone is free, obviously, and Call of Duty. Right? When I say Call of Duty, I'm just talking. I'll just assume that I'm talking about the multiplayer. I'm not talking about like the single player and zombies and all that stuff. I'll go ahead and put zombies in there, right? So you have 3, I'll call them sub ecosystems of the greater whole, where things you earn in the battle pass, some of them are cross compatible with those other modes. So there are things you earn in multiplayer that you can use in Warzone, and there are things you earn in Warzone that you can use in multiplayer, and same thing true for zombies. So if you're allowing people to play Warzone free, they're going to be playing the Warzone that's concurrent with that year's Call of Duty. So when Warzone gets updated a month or 2 after the new Call of Duty drops, it will be the Warzone that is parallel to that year's version of Call of Duty. You're telling people in Game Pass they're not going to get access to that Call of Duty until a year later. So that breaks a couple of things. Number one, even though I said those things still have thriving communities, but they're not the same community as the concurrents that are in the current Call of Duty. you're giving people access to Call of Duty a year later when no one would when at a scale of the market, nobody gives a shit. Right? This is the same thing. What's super funny is this is the same thing that PlayStation used to do to you. Right? Because PlayStation would get additional maps and modes and then say, okay, those things can go to Xbox a year later. Right, at the point where nobody gives a shit about those extra maps and modes coming over to Call of Duty, that was moved over to the next one.
That was the Destiny problem on Xbox.
Yeah.
You know, we got the last word after they nerfed it. You know, I mean, like we got all the maps after the fact.
So the problem is that you're telling people you're telling Game Pass people they're not going to get access to that Call of Duty till later. So in order to stay, so now you've broken that economy, right? People are going to be earning stuff in Warzone that they can't use cross over with Call of Duty or Zombies unless they buy Call of Duty for that year. And if they buy Call of Duty for that year, then they don't give a shit about the fact that it shows up in Game Pass a year later, right? Again, this is like, you know, maybe this was done through incompetence. I don't think so. I think they very well knew what they were doing. And again, they're trying to sell it as this is a good thing for consumers. No, it's not. Going back to the whole Phil Spencer thing about on the post Xbox stage with Ryan McCaffrey in the staged interview. You know, I don't want to twist your arm behind your back and do, you know, sleazy corporate things to make you play. Like, this is twisting your arm behind your back. Because if you're a really hardcore Call of Duty player and you were getting a benefit over Call of Duty being in Game Pass, and if you play Warzone, right, like that economy's been broken. But by the same token, if you're a Call of Duty player, it makes no sense, right? Because the big get for Call of Duty is obviously the multiplayer, not the single player campaign. You know, and by the time you get access to it a year later, nobody's, you know, the vast majority of people aren't going to be playing it. So not only are you upcharging people $3 for content that they don't care about, additional content they don't care about, you've also devalued the ad of Call of Duty by having it show up a year later at a point where nobody cares about it. But hey, this is a great deal for consumers because, you know, it's less than the $30 they were charging you.
It's a great point, Logic. Let me grab the super chat here. War Wanted with the $5 super chat says, in my opinion, the weirdest part of Game Pass tiers is Game Pass console, PC, both grant only half access to play anywhere titles. Thank you for that super chat. Got one more super chat here. CPEX38, $2 super chat says, I don't see Marvel allowing Blade to launch on Game Pass. I don't know. Maybe not. Second part of the super. Warwana says, when Microsoft has convinced third party to use this feature, Microsoft goes out and expects users to spend more for access to both. Ironic. That was the second part of that super chat. So Warwana said, in my opinion, the weirdest part of Game Pass tiers is Game Pass console PC. Both grant only half access to play anywhere titles. When Microsoft has convinced third party to use this feature, Microsoft goes out and expects users to spend money more for access to both. Ironic. All right, that's the whole super chat. Thank you, Warwana.
He said something earlier too that I understand his point, but I didn't fully follow the breakdowns. He said Microsoft is out here convincing some third party to not request more money from gamers for access to a title on multiple platforms. Yet they themselves are requesting more from consumers to do exactly that.
Yeah, again, I'm not giving the pat in the back. Not doing it. Let's see.
And worse is the Play Anywhere feature. So yeah, because of Game Pass tiers, I think I'll eventually get it. War, I may be too slow. I'm sorry, I interrupted your super chat, BRAP.
That was a super chat. Just thought I thought this was kind of an interesting point. What Asha's doing is smart, training the Xbox gamers slowly buy games again. They'll be okay with buying first party games day one, no time.
Yeah, because now inflation justifies the price increases, and
Well,
we have to acknowledge that COD is a different kind of game.
look, I gotta be. I think this could be. I think this could be her getting people used to the idea that not everything's that the thing they trained us on for years to expect with Game Pass with first party day and date is off the table now. And I think she's trading like people are going to be okay with that. Because what you're going to hear is, oh, well, I wasn't interested in that game. Oh, no one really cared about that game. You know, my guys, like Game Pass doesn't exist in this vacuum. You know, there's other people that value these. Even if you don't value Call of Duty, there's other people that do. And so while it may not be a game you care for, they may come after the game that you do care for. So, I mean, that's why I'm like, I think people should be pushing back a little bit, asking those questions. As much as Microsoft likes to chat it up with people on social media, maybe some people should be asking Asher Sharma, hey, what does this mean for the future of Game Pass? Are you going to reevaluate on a title to title basis first party releases? I'd want to know that. I don't think she's going to tell you. But I think those are some of the questions people should be asking as consumers.
I think they should also be asking, hey, it's great you pulled Call of Duty, but like, why? Your assertion is that you're listening to us. You got influencers and content creators running around saying, hey, they're listening to consumer feedback. Apparently, you guys haven't listened to those of us who have said we don't care about Fortnite Crew and Ubisoft Plus Classics. So, why aren't those being pulled? Why are we still being charged extra for those?
Well, yeah.
Because I literally saw people in that thread, right, that she posted, right, saying that. What about Fortnite Crew? What about Ubisoft Plus Classics? I want it back to $20. Now look, I'm not going to deal with whether or not $20 is realistic, right? Getting back to that. We've all constantly said, hey, look, once these companies raise prices, they're not going back. But again, it's about the disingenuousness of saying, I did this because I had you guys foremost in mind, when that's in fact like not the case.
No, it's not.
Objectively so, by the pattern of behavior that we're actually seeing.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. And that's the part that's concerning me is that you have a subset of the community that believes that, oh, in fact, they did it for us. It's like, no, they didn't. Like, don't allow yourself to be played with. But it's like Gary would have said. Like Gary would have said something like very pointed about the Xbox community. On what show is it? Podcast Beyond? I always forget. Not Beyond. That's IGN.
Kind of Funny Games Daily.
Kind of Funny Games Daily. He was like, yeah, he's like, the Xbox community, they're a bunch of suckers. They are a marketing professional's dream come true. That was Gary Whitta. I was like, damn. Yes, I'm going to be harsh on the Xbox community because, like, it's like, guys, like they do these things, and then you guys are like, oh yeah, it's all good, it's great. I mean, is it? I guess my only point is, it's just ask questions, push back,
and let other let people who are your fellow citizens of that platform nation, if something bothers them, let them voice it. Stop with all the gatekeeping. I mean, that's why I'm not part of the Xbox community. You either, I don't think, because there's so much gatekeeping about what people can have a problem with.
No, I'm not part of the Xbox community because I dared to ask questions and criticize Microsoft for things that I didn't agree with.
Yeah, somebody came at you and said, using inflation to justify prices, and I talked about it, on my podcast and some others. Like, look, none of us justifies prices. That's a false flag operation to use that verbiage. There's only one thing that justifies a price increase, and that's the market. The way the market responds to a price increase defines whether or not a price increase is justified or not. And so, by the same token, when these things happen, stop trying to gatekeep whether or not it's a good deal or a bad deal. Just say that you are okay with it, and then let other people have their own opinions about it, and then we'll read what the market decides is justified or not, based on the data that comes back.
Yep. No, 100% logic. 100%. There was, I don't know if you saw this in live chat, Logic. Somebody's reporting, or not reporting. Somebody in the live chat said that Halo Studios is trying to make an extraction mode for Halo.
Yeah, but I mean, didn't we? I thought we'd heard that before. I don't know. Maybe I'm confusing it with the planned battle royale mode.
It was a battle royale. Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about a Halo extraction. I don't know.
So I think I'm starting. Where I'm starting to get your point, and I see you going back and forth with this guy Aboriginal. So your point, and I think your point is the same as mine. Your point is, if a title is Play Anywhere and you are granted access to that Play Anywhere title via Game Pass, you only have access to that Play Anywhere title, despite the fact that it's a Play Anywhere title. You only have access to it on both platforms if you are a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber. So it's really not. And this is my same argument. I have a difference with the way you're interpreting it. I think that you're interpreting it. Okay, you're saying yes, yeah. So yes, it's concurrent with my argument though, which is that Play Anywhere is not how people define it, and because people are extrapolating a definition for it beyond what Microsoft actually says it is. And I'm not saying that that's what you're saying it is. You're actually doing it in the opposite direction. What I will say is, Play Anywhere, my belief is Play Anywhere is a licensing entitlement that is only applicable to paid games. It is a Play Anywhere title when you pay for the game. So it's actually, to my mind, it's actually not applicable via Game Pass. I think it's screwed up and confusing the way that they do it, and I think that's on them. But so for that reason, from a voice tracking and messaging perspective, yeah, you're absolutely spot on. You get this impression that you should, some people will get the impression that they should have access to a title in both places, but you actually don't unless you pay for Game Pass Ultimate. So yeah, that I get. But I think Play Anywhere is a if you pay for a game, then you have access to it on both platforms. What I think gets dorked up in the way people on the internet talk about it is they extrapolate Play Anywhere to actually Play Anywhere, which is also through the cloud. And that is not what it applies to. That is the point where the full culmination of Play Anywhere actually only takes place when you both pay for the title and you're subscribed to Game Pass and you are on Game Pass Ultimate. Well, maybe that's shifted now that they've moved cloud down to the other tiers. So I'll say it's you pay for the game and you're subscribed to Game Pass. If it's a day and date title, then yes, you have to also be subscribed to Game Pass Ultimate. So the reality is, Play Anywhere to me doesn't really reach its full value proposition in the way that a lot of people articulate it, unless you are pushing all your poker chips in and you're all in on everything, which is still dorked up in my opinion.
Yeah. That's a great point, Logic.
Yeah, yes, Warwater. I see what you're saying. I'm curious. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm curious. I want to go pull the thread and look at I don't think Fortnite is referred to as a Play Anywhere title, but it's definitely something, right? Because we we emphasize right on the show to be hyper specific, right, and articulate things correctly in the way that they're worded by the corporation. So yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing to look at.
Yeah.
And yes, well, that I'll agree with you on. I think this discussion has just proven how poorly Microsoft has done implementing all these features since it's seemingly changing every year. Yeah, that is a huge problem.
Yeah, because we're always having conversations, questions about it, because we're always like, wait a minute, that changed, or what does this mean? Or they're vague on this
because they've made it so complicated.
Well, yeah.
But the other huge thing is, again, I mean, it's this. This is another frustration with like content creators could be doing the job, right, of decrypting all this stuff and making it translatable and easily understood by consumers, but that's not what they do. They actually participate in the obfuscation and the decoy mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, but yeah, a huge problem with this, and this goes back to the discussions, BRAP, that you've been involved in.
Yeah,
is that people not understanding what an Xbox game is, because a lot of people like to conflate licensing entitlements with version control, and they will say that an Xbox game is a game that is on both console and PC. No, you have a license to access that game on both console and PC, but those games are actually two different versions. It is not the same executable that you are running on both platforms.
Yeah, one is a PC game, and the other one's an Xbox game.
Yeah, or at least a console game. Yep.
Yeah,
they're both published by Xbox, right? But they're two different versions.
Yeah, technically speaking, yes. Yep.
Yeah, I'd also agree with that. Where it's I just want to be an informed consumer, and Microsoft tries so hard to not let us be. I would go further than that. I don't think they try so hard to not let. I think they deliberately attempt to keep people unclear on what it is that's going on.
So you think they do that on purpose?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But what's the benefit for them doing that on purpose? Like this is, I mean, like why? Like, because clearly it hasn't really benefited them.
It's called duping and pandering.
Yeah, no, it hasn't been. But when you have a consumer base that doesn't hold your feet to the fire, and they're easily duped, I mean, I guess why not?
Yeah, I think that's also the reason they don't hold their feet to the fire, because they're constantly allowing themselves to be duped, which is aided and benefited by all the Microsoft doublespeak. I think because if they didn't do that, their consumer base would be even smaller.
That's a good point. Wow. All right, Logic. On that note, I don't have any other topics, and I do need to wrap up the show. I have to get up early in the morning. But any other thoughts before we wrap up the show?
No, not at all.
All right. Well, I do want to thank everyone in the live chat for coming by, hanging out with us tonight. Really appreciate it. Do me a favor, do the YouTube thing. Hit the like button. Consider subscribing, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. And Logic, always a pleasure, sir. And we'll be back next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And everyone just, hey, look, enjoy the rest of the week and have fun playing video games, because ultimately that's what it's about. And Logic, again, I'll ask you, as I do every week, if you want to be found, let everyone know they can find you.
I do not.
All right. By the way, great blog, by the way, right up this week. What we talked about earlier. Yeah, that was actually a great read.
Yeah, I think we're narrowing in on some single digit number of the last ones of things like that I will ever write.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I wasn't aware of the pricing work that Asha Sharma did at Instacart. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah,
really interesting. Yeah, because it's
super interesting.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, I don't know. Like, I don't want to sound. I said it like so funny. I said this earlier. Like, I don't like everyone's doom and gloom about consoles, but then it's like I don't want to be doom and gloom about Asha and her role at Instacart and how that might be. I don't know that.
One thing that executives do is they convince themselves that once they have won a war or a battle by following one plan, that plan is then applicable to the things that they do in the future. So I absolutely believe that some vector, some facet of what she orchestrated at Instacart is absolutely part of the plan of what's going on at Xbox.
Well, my concern is there were some nefarious things that they were doing at Instacart as it relates to pricing to consumers, right?
Very true. Very true.
So is she going to bring that? Again, I don't want to sound doom and gloom, but it's like, okay, but she was part of that at Instacart. If it doesn't know about what the nefarious pricing tactics at Instacart, like just do a quick Google search. You could probably find it. There was an investigation, right? Logic.
Yeah, so they were charged by the FTC. They went through some, I think. Well, let me back up. So Consumer Reports did some investigating and found evidence of these predatory pricing practices. Wrote a report on it in 2025. I think like this, maybe summer of 2025, maybe earlier. They were charged then by the FTC. They had hearings, and then they settled out of court with the FTC. And so what they did was they did algorithmic smart rounding and A/B testing of charging people different prices for products. When Consumer Reports ran their investigation, they found a price disparity where 75% of the items they tested had a 23% price variance. Instacart did targeted markups for least price-sensitive items using dynamically optimized pricing. So that's a big word salad. That basically means things that people did not buy less of when the price increased had their prices increased. Right? And then hidden pricing deltas just was and then they didn't convey that like they were like these things were not listed as markdowns, they weren't listed as discounts, right? I draw this difference between what PlayStation is doing. I'm not saying what PlayStation is doing anymore, right? But what I will say is the pushback I've had is what PlayStation is doing is they were doing dynamic pricing discounts. So as far as we know, none of those were things like they were charging somebody $80 for a new game versus charging somebody $7 for a new game. They weren't trying to upcharge the thing. It was at a time when they were going to discount a price, they determine whether or not they would discount a price thing by $5 or $10, right? So it's different. And then they did surveillance pricing. So the end result of this is that on average, what this investigation found is that a person that was a family of 4 could wind up spending $1,200 more per year on Instacart. And all this was being done to drive additional profit and revenue to the retailers who were participants in Instacart, who Instacart was informing, we're doing this for your benefit. So again, I don't believe that this all culminated out of a company that was acquired during the time that Asha Sharma was there and was absorbed into her organization. So I don't believe for a minute that there's just absolutely nothing that was caught up in this whole mix of how this whole thing was put together that is not right under consideration for how it would work at Xbox. And I'm not necessarily saying the plan is to use AI to do predatory pricing, but again, like the things that I alluded to before, right? Like instrumenting the Game Pass service for these deeper analytics so that decisions can be made on profitability, like is probably what's going to happen. And I think the end result of that will be some things that are not necessarily the best thing for the consumer.
Yeah, no, that's what's concerning to me. So, well, we'll see. Time will tell, right? So, no, but thanks for sharing that logic. It's again, great read. So, all right. Thank you everyone for watching, and again, we'll be back next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. We'll see you then. Thank you.